Hey, it's Cal. I want to make another video about plants. And I had mentioned ancient grains and how it's important for us to grow ancient grains because they're a caloric dense food, right? They're not like leafy greens, they're a caloric dense food. And they can be winterized, even vegetables, you can can them in winterized vegetables. But it's like I was talking about the anasazi in the corn that they grew is they were a nomadic tribe. They were a nomadic tribe, and they would plant their seeds, and they would travel north, and then they'd go back into the south towards the fall, and then they'd harvest their seeds, and then they'd ground up the corn and mill the corn, and then get like some sort of animal fat or javelina fat or whatever, and put the milled corn in a pouch, and then they make tortillas. Right? That was like a winterized food. That was like the the Native American bread or the Anasazi bread, which Anasazi is very ancient Native American culture. But I wanted to make this video about hemp because I'm from Nebraska. Anyone who's lived in the Midwest, particularly Nebraska, there is wild hemp growing everywhere. There's so many stories of why it's there. It was brought there. A lot of people say, oh, during World War II, people were allowed to grow hemp for, military clothes, military robes, and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, there is so much wild hemp in Nebraska. And I think federally, I'm pretty sure federally, hemp is legalized in the U.S. It's just the states have it illegal. And you know, a few years back, there was a bunch of farmers in like northern Nebraska that were trying to legalize hemp to grow it for farm for the textiles and all that hemp has to offer, because I mean hemp has so much to offer and for so many things that are more than just food. But I mean, it's important to start creating healthy, nutrient rich, mineral rich food, and hemp is a good grain to grow in. Particularly the hemp in Nebraska, it grows really well. You don't have to fertilize it. I've seen hemp plants that grow like over 10 feet, over like 12 feet tall. And that is in the middle of the Nebraskan clay prairie, right? I feel like the soil in Nebraska sucks. And it probably sucks because of the Dust Bowl, right? There's no topsoil there. But that plant grows like crazy there. It's a weed for a reason. That's why it's called weed. And it's a seed crop. It's a seed crop. It's not the type of plant that you would smoke and get high, and maybe it does have medicinal qualities to it that aren't related to the effects that marijuana has. But and I think that's a lot of fear that a lot of people have with it. But I think a lot of people are also duped into a lot of the beliefs around it and keeping it illegal because because some of the big institutions don't want that. They don't because you know think of like big agriculture companies like Monsanto, right? They want to make money. They would lose money if hemp was grown, by the farmers, especially in Nebraska. Monsanto is so prolific in Nebraska. Like, instead of the farmers growing their crops, their seed, their corn, and then using their pesticides and their fertilizers and fungicides, farmers would just be growing hemp, which doesn't need fertilizer. And if you did use fertilizer, you'd probably it would help the yield. You don't have to water it. You don't have to irrigate it. Which, I mean, let's face it, a lot of places in the world have water issues. I mean, we need to be growing plants that don't have water issues. We need to stop trying to make plants that are more drought resistant. We already have plants that are disease and pest resistant. We already have plants that are drought resistant. We already have plants that don't need as much fertilizer. Yeah, like hemp. Let's fucking grow hemp. It's probably illegal because big institutionalized companies, whatever, have a political pull. And maybe have ways of manipulating and cozening the population and maybe brainwash or whatever. Fuck it. Let's just grow our own food. Let's just do it anyways. I mean, I always have the idea of like, who the fuck cares about a law? that is not mine. That like that's the way that I see things, and maybe it's because I'm an indigo child or a rainbow child or something. It's like, yeah, but you don't have to follow those signs. It's like I drive down the road and it's like I see a street sign and it's like yeah, but that's I don't have to. That's not my sign, you know. That's like trying to think of how I think. It's like I just don't see external authority. I see myself as my own authority that can only make the decisions from within myself. The signs don't make decisions for me. They're not even sentient. So, like, that's how I think. And I think a lot more people should start thinking about like that because the laws are ridiculous and we need to stop. We need to stop following the laws that are not good for us. Just because people with high IQs that are smart make these laws does not mean that they're good for us. Does not mean that those people have our greatest interests in mind, right? And you know, a lot of those people are so short term. The reason why we've been going into growing, you know, bad crops and producing crops like that is for money, or those companies and those people to make money. And by having the agenda for profit, it's like corn plants are bred to make money, right? Corn plants are bred to make money, not to create food. That is the problem. And it's greed, right? Which oh well, fuck the greed. Don't buy the crops, don't plant the crops, right? Grow hemp, you know? And it sucks because a farmer in Nebraska can't grow 5 acres of hemp without the DEA coming and fucking burning it all down. That's kind of ridiculous. And you know what? What should happen is farmers should get together, not just in Nebraska, but in Kansas, North and South Dakota, and even on the reservations. Instead of growing as much sunflowers on the reservations, grow fucking hemp in North Dakota and let it be a protest, right? And protest our right to grow foods and produce that is more beneficial and healthier for us and more beneficial and harmonious with the earth, right? That could be a cool protest in North Dakota, you know, because when I was in North Dakota for the protest up there, there were so many sunflower fields, right? I think the Native Americans should fucking keep most of those sunflowers, but fucking just grow hemp everywhere. And hemp like spreads like crazy because the birds love it. It's such a good food. It's good for horses. It's good for cattle. You know, the reason why people use corn is, yeah, it does convert sunlight into starch really well, into carbohydrates and sugar. But, you know, sugar's making us sick, right? And we need healthy sugars, right? We don't need fructose. You know, no one eats like 5 apples, right? In one sitting, right? We don't need cans of soda with high fructose corn syrup. So let's grow things like hemp, ancient grains, right? You know, I'm trying to think of like other ancient grains, like quinoa is probably one of them. I'm trying to think of this natural one that grows in Nebraska. It was growing in my backyard when I lived in Nebraska in town. It was like a weed, and you see it growing everywhere. I don't know if it was sumac or what, but it had so many seeds in it. And the Native Americans used to make tortillas out of it. It's like a healthy food. It's like a superfood. It grows like a weed. I mean, it's considered a weed by most people, but it's food. You know, it's like people need to realize that in their front yards is more food than they realize. And a lot of people spray the food. Like dandelions is a superfood. You know, people make wine, pies, all this stuff out of dandelion. And you know, if you pick dandelions at the right time, they're not as bitter. The roots are usually bitter, but it's like helps your liver detox. I mean, it's good. It's good things, you know. And it also aerates the soil. It's so funny that people is because they're ignorant because they don't know, and they're cozened and tricked into buying stuff by companies, right? So it's like dandelions are like have good breaking up chi where they break up and aerate the soil. That's why they grow in your lawn where the soil where grass isn't growing because the soil is compacted. Dandelions go there and break up and aerate the soil, and the grass grows there. So don't spray your dandelions, eat them, okay? Make salads out of it. Don't go to the store and buy fucking dandelion green salads fucking pick them yourself. You know, don't poison yourself. You know, don't go in someone else's yard where they probably sprayed them. You know, don't spray your yard and eat the food that grows in your yard, right? I mean, that's just an idea, right? You know, and do your research. Don't freaking eat a poisonous plant, you know, like nightshade, like datura or belladonna. Those are like fucking poisonous plants, right? Don't eat those. They'll make you sick. But, you know, be conscious. We need to be conscious of what we're doing and eating healthy food. And yeah, and just working with the earth and not so against it. You know, dig up your front lawn, plant gardens in it. You know, it may be illegal in your neighborhood. Your whole neighborhood needs to agree to start growing a garden and then make it a protest. I think that would be such a beautiful thing to see gardens or container gardens in everyone's front yard instead of wasting all the time, effort, and money and poisoning the earth by trying to maintain a green yard.